Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is March 12th, 2024, and I want to make a video talk about something that's been percolating and stirring around the cryptocurrency space. But first, a demonstration. Wow! How about that? Okay, so let's open up Cleopatra. Ooh, Cleopatra. And what we're going to do, I am Pucci Nakamoto. There we are. Sign that. Oh, we signed that. Oh, my. And look at that. Satoshi's key. Oh, my. What's going on? Well, it's a fraud. If you actually take a look here, this is a key that I created to demonstrate you can backdate a key. This is the actual key. So the actual key ID for Satoshi Nakamoto has this fingerprint here. It was created a very long time ago. It's a 1K key, very old, probably going to be broken at some point because methods are catching up. And it's just that simple for somebody to sign. It's very easy to sign. You know, in fact, I just double signed. What is so hard about that? Everything in the Bitcoin blockchain, every single thing that's done, every transaction, every block generation event, and the white paper itself is connected to a public-private key pair. Anyone who asserts and claims that they built Bitcoin should easily be able to do this. It's not hard. With any cryptographic asset, they have custody of a single token. You have the private key. You can do this. See how simple and fast it was? I don't have the associated private key for the Satoshi key. Well, this one here. No one does that we know of, except for Satoshi Nakamoto or someone related or connected to that project who got custody of it, had to have known him, had to have been sent it. Okay? All I got to do is just sign a message like that. Yet this guy, for years and years and years, has been incomprehensibly babbling nonsense and idiocy. And there are so many layers of lies and plagiarism and just narcissistic pathologies. And still will not give up the game because he's mentally ill. And COPA is suing him, and thank God they're going to finally bury this. But despite all of that, there's no way to get through it. But what's really amazing to me is I see people all the time say, no, he's really Satoshi, and defend him, and go to astronomical lengths to say this guy is Satoshi Nakamoto. He's Satoshi Nakamoto. And you think to yourself, gosh, what is the burden of proof necessary? So the Occam's razor is what I just did. You got to do that. And you got to have the legit key. And anybody in the space who knows how the space's technology works knows that this is the key, knows the set of keys that would be candidates to indicate that somebody was involved in the creation of Bitcoin, and would know what the burden of proof needs to be. They would know that. They would know how to verify it. It's so simple. It's so easy. I just did it in front of you. Years and years and years, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. And this is one of the most egotistical men I've ever met. Seen him three times in my life. Once in Tokyo, once at an airport in Turkey, and once in Rwanda, where I witnessed him go up on stage and brag that he has more money than their country. And how brilliant he is. Doesn't even know what an unsigned integer is, but how brilliant he is in every single detail, but doesn't even know basic facts about his supposed creation, and is pathologically incapable of doing this, which would end most of the discussion and debate, or at the very least give him a very credible claim. So why do people believe it? Well, there's a lovely book. It's called Cults Inside the World's Most Notorious Groups and Understanding the People Who Join Them. This is a true cult when you think about BSV and when you think about the whole Craig Wright thing. And when you look at it from a lens like that, you start realizing that it's not about the burden of proof. People who are trying to deceive you, what they do is they construct an elaborate, twisty, turny story where they are the hero and the victim of persecution, and any claim, any assertion that they're not the hero and not the victim is part of a grand conspiracy against them. And only through their wisdom, brilliance, and insight, vision, can you get out. So we have this view that weak people and stupid people are the only people that fall for that. Turns out when you look at cults, a lot of smart people end up getting wrangled into them. And this is relevant because every single thing in the cryptocurrency space, when we head into this new bull run, and I've seen it so many times. I saw it in the bull run of 2012, 2013. I saw it in the bull run of 2016, 2017. Saw it in the bull run of 2020 to 2021. And we're heading into a bull run, it looks like. So it's 2024, and we're going to 2025. Every single one of these cults, every single one of these leaders, whoever they are, whether they be Do Kwon or the BitConnect people or the OneCoin people or Mark Karpelès, every one of these heroes that are going to save us and deliver us from perdition, they come out of the woodwork like rats coming out of a ship that's sinking. They find a way to make themselves known, be seen. You didn't know they were there before, but now they're here. And they're going to mislead and manipulate people and make billions of dollars from it. Some will go to prison, some get caught, some snake their way through. But you have to inoculate yourself in this industry from these people. And there's a lot of newcomers that are coming in because it's a bull market. So there's some simple rules and simple logic, that people should follow. First off, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. So if somebody asserts to be something, like Satoshi Nakamoto, for example, what you ought to do is make a list of things that that person should be able to do and that person should know. Pretty simple, right? So should be able to do, should have custody of some of the artifacts involved in the creation of Bitcoin, the PGP key, keys associated with blocks mined, early copies of the source code that were never publicly published, but can be verified to be dated prior to the launch of the protocol, early copies of the white paper with the same facts and circumstances in your possession. Knowledge. A person knew an enormous amount about C++, knew a lot about cryptography, enough to make unorthodox choices in the elliptic curves. ECDSA, SEC P256K1 is not a standard curve at the time. Why would they pick that? Turned out it wasn't compromised by the NSA. So it's an unusual thing. The scripting language, Forth, was an unusual stack-based assembly language for Bitcoin script. It's unusual. There's a lot of warts and intricacies, some implementation mistakes with Bitcoin's multi-sig. The encoding that was done, base 58 encoding, so typos and mistakes weren't made, probably a direct result of early versions of the software. So when did that switch over happen? Why did they decide base 58 to avoid typos? Delicate intricacies, some that are discovered retroactively that were never stated directly, but were only discovered upon research. So a person who has that role should be able to speak very comfortably and fluently about all those things. And also possess a complete copy of all the emails that Satoshi had and correspondences Satoshi had, including all the private messages on Bitcoin Talk with the official account. Cyrus should be able to validate that, right? Simple stuff. Normal, everyday thinking people can take 5 minutes or talk to a subject matter expert, write all these things down. There have been half a dozen lawsuits now, and all this swarm of nonsense and elaborate manipulations that have occurred that normal people, thinking people, would say there's no threshold that's been met to prove this. But yet a cult exists that pushes people in this direction. This is no different than people who claim things like we solved the blockchain trilemma. We solved scalability. We solved governance. We solved pick your favorite thing. So you're going to see all these new next generation cryptocurrencies, these new concepts that come out into the industry. So you take a step back when you hear it and you ask yourself something very simple. What is the burden of proof? What evidence needs to be seen? And when you ask for that, they should be able to provide it. So when you look at Cardano as an example, we publish all these papers. Well, papers go through peer review. And the first question you ask is that the same process we go through that your average scientist working at an unrelated university, unrelated in computer science goes through? So in other words, if you were a cryptographer, pick your favorite university, Arizona State, University of Florida, Tokyo Tech, whatever, and they're publishing a paper in the same field, does our stuff go through the same level of rigor, more or less? The answer is the same. Is that verifiable? Yes, because you can check the conferences the papers have been submitted to. You can talk to subject matter experts in cryptography and verify that the standard of proof for computer science is done through conferences, typically not journals. It's the opposite in most fields of science. And that we got accepted, and the acceptance of those is done through a rigorous peer-reviewed process. Now, does that mean the papers are right? No. Does that mean that the papers are absolutely correct and solve every problem? No. What it does mean is that third parties, unrelated, unconnected, who are the standard bearers of academic rigor for that discipline, have read the papers, there's something novel in them, and they've decided they're worthwhile to be accepted and discussed. You can look at citation counts. GKL, for example, the bedrock of security upon which things in Cardano are built, has 1,800 citations, publicly verifiable. Simply go to Google, GKL 15 ePrint, bring it up, search results there, and you can see a list of the citations of other people's work citing that. It's a good indicator that the preponderance of the academic community, given that this paper was written in 2015 with ample time for retraction, flaws, or other problems, has decided that not only is it noteworthy, it should be the foundation upon which they cite, as an example. Does this again mean that that's useful? It solves major problems? No, but at least gives you an independent validation verification. And then you look at code. You say, how do I know the code is right? Okay, well, you can write it in a language that has less failures, like Spark, for example. They're a common language in the ADA community in the high assurance world. Coq, Idris, Agda, these dependently typed languages, very powerful for preventing bugs. Haskell with formal methods. Okay, OCaml, like Tezos does, for example. Does that mean the code is right? No, but at least it gives you some certainty that the code has a higher degree of quality. You can then write a formal specification. You could prove properties of the code against that formal specification. Does that mean the code is bug-free and right? No, but it gives you a higher level of assurance. So if a project takes the time to do these things, there's probably a case that can be made that there's goodwill, a legitimate interest to do things right and correctly. Does that mean the project is competitive? Does that mean that the project is going to be commercially successful? Does that mean the project is going to have adoption? No, it doesn't mean any of those things. It just means the protocols are probably reasonable and the code is probably a correct representation of those protocols. So then you got to do more diligence and you keep going down that way. And the problem is that you move from the objective to the subjective. If you're in a cult, if you're in a confidence game, if you're in a scam, none of those things exist. No one will tell you that things can fail, that at some point you lose the ability to completely know the future, and that everything is subject to additional knowledge and review, and facts and circumstances can change. What they'll tell you is nothing will fail. It's going to go to the moon, guaranteed, and trust us because we're super brilliant. And any criticism is illegitimate and wrong. That's what they're going to say. And I have seen no greater case study of that than the Craig Wright affair. This miasma of fear and just bullying exists. If you even have the audacity to say things like I'm saying, there's risk of litigation. Just by making this video, there's a chance we could be sued. After all of these things, just by making this video, the people in that cult are going to attack us now. But it has to be said. It takes a little bit of courage to go out there because it's such a great example of how, regardless of how much evidence to the contrary, people get trapped into bad mindsets. So the burden is on us as a broader crypto community to look out for each other. At the end of the day, Ethereum fights Solana, fights Cardano, fights Bitcoin. Yes, there are commercial disagreements, but we're all in the same broader ecosystem. We're all in the same club. We're all trying to teach people about the value of decentralization. We're all trying to teach people how to be their own bank, own their own identity, be in charge of their own life. And it doesn't matter if you're Satoshi Nakamoto or a completely new person that just started today in the field. None of that matters. What matters is you're here. And we're one broader community. And one of the goals, duties, and responsibilities of that broader community is look out for each other. And in particular, when we see dark holes that suck people in and they convince them things that are very problematic, you have to speak out against it. I remember years ago talking to certain exchanges and asking them, why did they list BitConnect? They'd say things like, well, it's a scam, but we're making great trading fees. I remember years ago talking to people about things like Luna, for example. And I say, I think there's going to be a cascading failure here. Been in the stablecoin business, algorithmic stablecoin business since BitShares. Did all these models, we thought about the design, and anything that's not over collateralized tends to have a cascading risk whenever you have a high degree of volatility on the downside. Well, we don't care because we're making lots of money. And you have so many people come out and say, look how brilliant this is. Look how beautiful it is. They get tattoos on their arm and they brag how their 10 brightest friends told them to do it. Meanwhile, the industry as a whole, the insiders, they kind of know something's a little off here because nothing goes up forever. Nothing goes to the moon. And for every dollar you're making in a sum zero game, it had to have come somewhere else. So as a broader ecosystem, did they speak up, speak out, say there's an issue? No, because they're making the money. And unfortunately, that means that you, the consumer, you have to be a little bit more aware and cognizant of these things. And, after reading some of the latest transcripts, I figured, it's about time someone makes a video about this. 2025 is going to be likely the biggest year in the history of the cryptocurrency space. There is a non-zero probability we could see $200,000 Bitcoin. Rising tides, it means the altcoin space is going to grow as well. Because of that speculation and interest, tens of millions of people are going to flood into the cryptocurrency space. And this is the first time ever that they've been exposed to it. It's a joyous occasion in that we have an opportunity as an industry to win the hearts and minds of so many. The reality is, though, that during that flood, many of these people will be victimized by scams and cults. And unfortunately, too few people in this industry seem to care very much about that. Remember in 2017, I was on Bloomberg, and we were at the time the age of the ICO. All these ICOs were happening. They said, what do you think of ICOs? And I said, ICO mania is a ticking time bomb. You can still Google and find the article from 2017. And very rightfully so, predicted that the bubble would burst and it would harm a lot of people. And it did. And we went into a dry spell for several years until it came back again in 2021. This is just how these cycles work. It just seems to be the way that the crypto industry as a whole works. And I believed cycle by cycle that we grow up a little bit as an industry and get a little bit better at this. Unfortunately, it seems like we're headed to make the same mistakes again. So that's why we spent so much time thinking about things like the Edinburgh Decentralization Index, and actually why Sean Ford is working on a macroeconomic survey of cryptocurrency value, and why we're also talking around a objective measurement for performance and throughput in networks. It's time we as an industry take a step back and we start talking about unifying North Stars, things that we all can agree about, regardless of who we are, that are objective metrics of whether a network is doing something interesting or not. What's nice about that is if everybody accepts it, maybe, just maybe, everyday people can start using these to wayfind and separate the wheat from the chaff, to separate the good projects from the bad projects. It's a long road and there's a lot to do, but I'm getting pretty tired. More than 10 years into this, seeing the same things happen again and again and again, cycle after cycle, and just seeing the same comments and the same statements. It's an extraordinary thing. Maybe I'm just too experienced and I've been around too long and it's easy for me, but it's so hard for others. Or maybe people are being blinded by greed. Or maybe people's human nature is just being sucked out of them. I don't know. I can't give you an accurate answer. All I can do is talk as an industry as a whole and question why more people don't stand up and question why more people don't ask basic questions. There's a simple axiom in life. If you don't understand something, don't get involved in that thing. And there's never going to be a rush. So many people try to tell you, you have to invest now, you have to do something now, you have to take this action now. Unless somebody is literally hanging on a rope and they're just about to fall off the cliff and the rope is breaking. You don't have to act now. Whether you act today or tomorrow or the next day, there's always going to be opportunities. I missed the dot-com boom in the 1990s because I was born in 1987. So by the time I got all the way through the 90s, 13 years old. Am I going to go start an internet company? No. Elon Musk was the guy there. He started Zip2. And later on, he started, after Zip2 went through, X.com, which became PayPal. Then, later in life, the cryptocurrency boom came, and I caught the first generation of it. Late stage first generation. The 2011s, 2010s, these types of things. First as a speculator and a miner, nothing significant. And then I made it my full-time job in 2013. And I rode the smart contract revolution and was a major player in the third generation cryptocurrency space. Now I'm old news. I'm the old guy. Look at the white in the beard. The new generation's here. They're doing completely new things. GameFi and metaverses and completely new types of DeFi. The DeFi revolution. Haven't launched a single successful DeFi project. Maybe we'll have some success there, but I'm already a fossil, just like the dot-com boomers and these things. So that's the current generation. Okay, well, we didn't have OpenAI just a few years ago. It wasn't a mainstream commercial thing. No one cared about it. Now everybody's talking about large language models. They'll be talking about open source, decentralized large language models. We didn't have truly decentralized social networks. Now we're starting to see some that are really interesting, like Farcaster, for example, that are popping up. Didn't even know anything about it until a few weeks ago when somebody mentioned it at Denver. I was, oh, that's pretty cool. We've been talking about that forever. Mastodon and Gab and all these. Oh, that's old tech. We got something completely new. Wow. Let's say you missed that. Well, in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, a decade, there's going to be a completely new thing. Before crypto, there was the cell phone revolution, the Web 2 mobile revolution. All these people came in and made billions of dollars creating apps like Instagram and other such things. Before that, there was the internet. Before that, the computer hardware revolution with the Steve Jobses. You see, so if you don't understand something and you're really wanting to get involved, learn, take the time. And you know what? If you miss a train, another train's going to come. Cult leaders and scam artists, what they tell you is this is the only window. There'll never be another one. There'll never be another opportunity. Now or forever lost is what it is. That's what they'll tell you again and again and again. It's just not true. So no one, not a government agency, not your attorney general, not your priest, is going to protect you. This truly is one of the last frontiers of unrestricted capitalism by design. And the only person that's going to take care of you is you. When you look at those old cowboy movies, right now writing a book about the history of my ranch in Wyoming, it dawns on you how risky it was to travel westward and how people truly had to be self-reliant. If you got bit by a snake in the 19th century, you're done. If you didn't pack enough supplies, you'd run out of supplies and die on the road. If you weren't prepared for the elements, you'd freeze to death. Look at the history of the Oregon Trail, for example. But yet the people who survived made America. They made the West. They built so much. It's the history of Wyoming, of Montana, of Colorado, these types of things. So just like this, when you look at the cryptocurrency industry, you have to inoculate yourself and protect yourself against these crazies. And remember those basic principles. Truths that will never change regardless of the cycle, regardless of who you are. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. If someone claims something, the burden's on them to prove it, not you to disprove it. Basic principle. If people are building things, there should be evidence of the correctness of the things they're building and the use and adoption of the things that they have. And it should be rather straightforward to understand why such things are going to grow, adopt, and be successful, and where the USPs of that thing are. And they should be open and honest about the trade-offs of what they've constructed and why they made those trade-offs and why those trade-offs are important. And be fully honest that reasonable people can disagree. Furthermore, if you miss something, it's like missing a train. Another one will show up, another opportunity will come. Never use the excuse of missing a window to not take the time necessary to due diligence. And anyone who tells you otherwise is either a pawn of someone trying to steal something from you or a person trying to steal something from you. They're basically the same. The vampire and the vampire spawn. It's just that simple. You see, was that so hard? Signing a message. No, I did it for all of you. I even took the time, 5 seconds, to create a counterfeit key that's backdated. It's not hard, just to prove a point. So if one truly had that, not only could they sign, they could broadcast to everyone, and it would silence everyone. Instead, lawsuit after lawsuit, all these extraordinary serpentine claims, and it won't end here because he's a mentally ill person. He's pathological, and that's a shame. But it's even a greater shame that so many still follow. So extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And we have to help each other. We have to work together as an industry. We have to do better as an industry. There's been a lot of great heroes who have taken the time to help people try to recover funds. A lot of great of you in law enforcement who have taken time to get educated and really try to help your community as well. Thank you for that. It means the world to all of us who lead projects. It makes me sad, though, because 2025, in addition to being the largest bull market we're likely to see, is also going to be the largest set of scams we've ever seen in the history of the space. I'm making a video. I'm talking to you. This is the real Charles Hoskinson. Within 12 months to 24 months, multimodal AI with large language models will grow to the extent that somebody's going to make a video that looks like this, my voice, my face, looks real, and it's AI created. And what I'm saying can be anything the AI makes me want to say. Some people will use this for fun and make me talk about purple leprechauns with yellow hats. Other people are going to use this to say I'm giving away money, or you should invest in something, or that you should trust something, or that I've resigned from some position to manipulate the market. They'll even do dark and twisted things, like say I have cancer, or I'm going to prison, or something like that. Why? Because they want to short sell the market and create a disruption. And they know as a public figure, a small window of time can create cascading problems and consequences. And even after the record's been corrected, the damage is already done. the value's already been stolen. They're going to do this across the board with every public figure in the cryptocurrency space using generative AI. Vitalik Buterin, Brad Garlinghouse, every single figure down the board, they're going to impersonate and attempt to steal money, and some people are going to fall for it. Now, there are solutions. We created a Holoprism as an example that allow you to attach a DID to an identity, and then any message can be authenticated. So you can have a video stream, and with better software, it'll appear red until I sign the stream, in which case that'll appear green. Great. But the problem is that the web is still stuck in the past, and it doesn't acknowledge quite yet the non-repudiation existence of digital signatures to the extent that we need to defeat generative AI. So in that gap, cascading problems are going to happen. And those are going to be used to steal your money. Those are going to be used to convince you of things that are not true. So now is the time that you have to realize that we're entering a true Wild West, and you have to protect yourself. You have to properly pack. And the single most important thing to carry with you is wisdom. The single most important thing to carry with you is common sense. You don't get something for nothing. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, proof. And if you don't understand something, don't rush it. Spend the time to understand it. And people should be willing to give you that time. Life should work that way. Any violation of those basic axioms is a good indicator that you're being defrauded. And if you're surrounded by people who believe different, it's a pretty good indicator that you're in a cult. Just think about that. So anyway, it's going to be a fun year. Next year is going to be as fun too, but it's going to be a rocky one. There's a lot that's going on, a lot of really cool things that are going on. I'm very excited about the tens of millions of people that will likely enter the industry. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens with it, but it's also going to be a very frustrating year in many respects. And it's going to be sometimes challenging to navigate, and sometimes really deeply demoralizing and depressing to navigate. But, I was here a long time ago, and I'll be here a long time after. Ain't going anywhere. There's nowhere in the world I'd rather be. I recovered last year some spherules from the bottom of the ocean over in Papua New Guinea. And one of the people came on the expedition with me. It was a sea captain named Art Wright. Art is 89 years old. I think he's now 90. And Art, he was one of the most experienced sea salvage people alive. He outlived all the other ones. Navy captain in the 50s and 60s, fought in Vietnam, and then he became the salvage guy that the Navy would use to find really important stuff, whether it be a crashed Russian submarine or it be some other classified thing that they cared a lot about. So Art made a career out of basically being a mercenary to help entrepreneurs and other people find shipwrecks and gold, and in our case, spherules on the bottom of the ocean. And what was so extraordinary about being around Art was that at 89 years old, he was still on a ship, and he was still working. He'd get up every morning at 5 a.m. I couldn't sleep much, and I'd get up to, and I'd see him there in the mess hall, and I'd say, "Morning, Captain." And he'd say, "Morning." And he had an unlimited amount of energy. And I asked him about a week into the trip, I said, "Art, why do you still do what you do? You're 89. You got nothing to prove. You've been everywhere. And don't you miss home?" And he said, "My home is the sea. I love being on ships. I love what I do. And I'll keep doing it until they put me in a pine box." So that's the same for me. I love what I do. I love all of you. I love this industry. I love the fascination and the magic and the serpentine paths that we have to take. I love the research. I love the coding. I love the concepts, decentralization, complexity theory, systems theory, thinking about how things can evolve and become something, how the sum is much greater than the parts. The emergence of these things keeps me young, keeps me going. What I don't love is the dishonesty, the lack of integrity, and the cycles that invite so much fervor and chaos that distract so much from the progress we make as an industry. The headlines in the next 24 months are not going to be filled with the wins. They're going to be filled with sensational losses and fortunes made, not the things we accomplished as an industry. The massive innovations in zero knowledge technology, the remarkable innovations in consensus, the new cryptography that's brought to bear, the leap and step into the quantum world, and all the magic that that can bring to us. That's going to be foreshadowed by number go up and number go down, and bad people here, and even badder people behind them. So that's what we're walking into. But that's okay, because I still get to be on the show. And the sea is my home. Thanks for listening, everyone. And here's to 2024 and 2025. It's going to be fun.